Welcome to it, folks. The morning has arrived, 3rd of September, and we have ahead of us the USSA, the University Sports South Africa Premier League event for the Virtual SA Varsity Challenge. A fantastic morning ahead, lots of racing. I see we've got quite a few of our riders on the start line already. An exciting day ahead here on Zwift. We've got about 2 minutes. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what to expect for the day. We have lots of crossovers and live streams into the different athletes' homes that are going to be participating today. We'll fit those into the racing. 2 main categories ahead, the A being the men's race, and 2 minutes later the B category being the ladies. Hopefully those ladies don't catch too many of the men too early on in the race. Greater London Loop in reverse is what they'll be doing today, including Leith Hill. Leith Hill going to be the big decider. And very important for the guys, those that have teammates, I'm pretty sure strategically they're going to be making use of them. So let's see how it goes out there today. We've also got a lovely message coming through from Ms. Mkhlangu. She's the president of USSA, University Sports South Africa, and their initiative and what they do. A fantastic message from her. That's going to come up in about a minute's time. It's going to be exciting to see how some of the riders do, knowing that this last little while has really affected everybody. COVID, lockdown regulations and such like has led positively to a massive boom in the e-bike racing market. So fantastic morning. We're looking forward to seeing some huge numbers from these riders. My predictions, I'm going to keep those relatively quiet. I am going to talk about riders as we go through it as well, but I think we're going to pick up those guys that can hold that 6 watts per kilo over Leith Hill with some explosive 7, 8, 9 watt per kilo moments are really what's going to make the difference in the race. Having said that, it is quite a long lead in, flat roads, and if you make good use of the slipstreaming, can defend some riders nicely. So we'll see how it goes. I'll keep looking towards our directors as to when we're ready to go with the next steps. Remember, A batch starting at 8 a.m. So that's a men's race, 8 a.m. for them and 8:02 for the ladies event. We're going to have some live streams crossing over as well. I see we've got Eric Hines' interview lined up for 12 minutes past 8. So we'll cross over to him, see how he's handling at that moment. Is he going to be nice and calm, or is he going to be absolutely breathing through his ears? Every time I've crossed over to someone in one of these events, it's been a moment where the only thing you can hear is them breathing as hard as they can. It's a 28-kilometer course, so it's not going to have a lot of time for these riders to really sit back and do nothing. They're going to have to make sure they make the most of every opportunity overall. So, very exciting day ahead and looking forward to some fantastic racing. Okay, we're looking forward to doing that crossover. I think I'm just going to look forward to my director. Can we do that crossover? We are ready for the crossover, so I'm going to call up that recording from Mrs. Mkhlangu. She is the president of USSA.
COVID has brought both opportunities and challenges to universities and the public at large. And obviously, having sport being stopped or paused, we then had to relook at our offerings, and obviously esports and virtual sports became a solution for us. And we have now introduced more and more of our competitions virtually, and we have seen more institutions affiliating to USA Esports. There are a number of opportunities and programs that FISU has continuously ran, and obviously the FISU volunteer program, the FISU ambassadors, and obviously the FISU championships and FISU university games. And obviously, given the fact that we live in the time of COVID, last year we saw FISU eSport Challenge, and a lot of our countries in the continent participated, and particularly students from South Africa also participated. We had students from MATIS, we had students from VETS who represented South Africa, and they did very well. It is an opportunity for USA, obviously with the support of the Department of Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation, that we are able to deliver eSport challenges and obviously promote virtual competition. And I think this gives everyone an opportunity to be active and get involved in sport at the times that is appropriate for them, and also start practicing and doing the sports that they love the most. We have seen a lot of virtual runs happening, and now within university sport we have now introduced a number of virtual competitions, e-sport, but most importantly we are now going into IDUS, which is the International Day for University Sport, and I call upon all universities to do a number of virtual challenges. Let's challenge each other and let's enjoy sport.
Okay, thank you very much to Ms. Mklangu, that awesome message. The president of the University Sports South Africa body. And while we're talking about that, let me give a little bit on my side from the history of USSA and where it's come from. Myself personally, I actually got to compete in some of the SASA events. Back then the university body was called SASA. I used to race for Wits University, and it was an amazing environment to develop up as an athlete, not only as an athlete at that moment in time, but developing my professional background and my academic background, and doing it with like-minded people. And those university environments really give an amazing support structure to those athletes, giving you the opportunity to keep some serious focus around what you need to do. USSA results over the last couple of years have had some amazing riders come through and taking the titles. I'm looking at names like Alex Warsdale from 2019, Gert Haynes, who managed 3 years in a row, 2018, 2017, 2016, Tiffany Keep, Haley Preen, Francis Dutoy, Stellenbosch University, UCT, we've got Tuckies in there. It's an amazing list of people that we are dealing with, and universities as well. So this USSA initiative for the Varsity Challenge and this e-racing really making a massive impact on the performance opportunities for these athletes, and they get to put down a pretty serious title onto their CV as well. In addition to USSA and presenting this broadcast is the Premier League SA, and the Premier League SA has been probably the first and really sort of making headway in the market in the South African environment into the virtual racing and corporate wellness involvement in the corporate racing world. Premier League SA hosting events every Tuesday morning, doing lots of wellness events and hosting this one as well. And it's really amazing to see what they do and how they bring these events to scope, being able to do a live broadcast for this, being able to bring the rider profiles in. There's a whole production team behind this, and it's really pulled together by the amazing team at the Premier League SA. Next up, we're going to start discussing some of the varsity teams, and we're going to bring up that graphic for the varsities, and I think we've got that up on screen now, that varsity graphic up there, and some of those teams that we can look at. I'll mention some of them now. We got Tshwane University of Technology, Northwest University, or PACA as we call them, from Potch City, University of Pretoria, we call them Tuckies, so you'll hear me bouncing between the two names as it goes. I see Varsity College, and a very important person there making this whole thing happen, Travis Heesom from Varsity College, some great riders too. Stellenbosch University, multiple winners over the years for this USSA championships on the road in the past, and I'm pretty certain we're going to see some good results coming in the e-racing environment. University of Cape Town and University of KZN, Tiffany Keep representing there today. Amazing couple of riders too. And it's going to be exciting to see them. I'm sure they're going to get some live streams up and examples of the riders. They've been warming up. I can see them on Zwift. I've got a screen behind the camera there that lets me see what's going on with those guys as they're in the Zwift world. We got a countdown going of 4 minutes and 40 seconds currently. I think the next step we're going to go into would be the route graphic. And as I see it at the moment, that route graphic will come up shortly. As I said earlier, we are on the Greater London Loop in reverse. It's an event-specific loop, so it's one of those that generally is used for specific events, and this is something that is what an organization like Premier League SA makes happen for the riders. There's a 200-meter lead-in, so that 200-meter lead-in means that the riders are not going to be dropped in that first 200 meters, but they need to make sure that their power is up. And as you can see, it's not a big group of riders. It's a very elite group of riders, very strong. They are representing their relevant universities, and as they're going to be racing, there's going to be tactics thrown in here as well. With that route, we got Leaf Hill, which is going to be the major factor. Strategy is going to have to play around that as we go. Leaf Hill, pretty potent at times, 8 to 10% on the gradient. And those riders that are lean and strong, have been looking after themselves, are going to make a major impact. I see the race splitting up into groups after that for the race to the finish line. 3 minutes to go. So we're on 3 minutes to go. We got the riders at the start line now. We've had a chat through those, through the route graphic, and we know what's coming up ahead of us. Majority of the lead into Leaf Hill is very flat. So although there are slight gradients, it's mostly about the speed work and the tactics. Staying in that bunch is going to be very important. There's a single slipstreaming factor applied here today, and there are power-ups available. The usage of those power-ups are going to have to be specific and strategic at that moment in time. It's going to be pretty useless applying a weight-saving power-up at the wrong moment on a loop like the London Loop if you're not on Leaf Hill. So we're going to see how they apply it, what they do, when they apply it. Obviously, when we see that power up happening on those athletes, then we know that there's a strategic move being made by those athletes. So the USSA, University Sports South Africa, e-racing, the premier event, Premier League presenting this. And I've got to say a big thank you to the Department of Arts, Sports and Culture for bringing this together for us. We had a message earlier from Ms. Mklangu, and she's the president of USSA, and looking forward to some great racing ahead. I see we've got a couple of athletes lining up there, most of them keeping their legs warm, pedaling through. You can see the graphic on Zwift. If you're watching on the Zwift channel, you'll be able to pick that up. And you can see the guys messaging each other as well. D-sure, damn, check the boys. Good luck, everyone. Go easy on me, please. Good luck. So it's going to be some nervous riders. I got some of the profiles from UCT, and it says some of them are beginner riders. We really got to judge that based on how fast they are. They say beginner riders, and they can still manage a 5 to 6 watts per kilo average power output for the full duration of the event. Remember, 28 kilometers in total, 350 odd meters of vertical ascent in total, and it's all going to be about Leaf Hill and the strategies applied leading up to and after that. Some big names in here. We've got Sengrini, one of the Pro Touch Pro riders. We got, I got 1 minute. Sorry, I'm getting my markers from the directors as we go. 1 minute to go, down to 56 seconds. I'm sure the riders are getting pretty nervous now. The last sips of water are happening on the start line, and they are getting ready for what's going to happen in that first couple of minutes. It's always absolutely manic at the beginning of one of these e-races. You really don't want to get dropped there, but you also want to make sure you've got your power up. You want to make sure you're in those slipstreams, but you don't want to be expending too much energy. So 28 seconds to go. The Premier League SA Varsity Challenge University Sports South Africa Virtual Invitational, hosted by the Premier League South Africa here on Zwift, and a live streaming to you from the studios of the Premier League South Africa. 10 seconds to go. I hope those riders are already clipped in. They've started pedaling. They should be in a nice big gear. 4 seconds to go. 3, 2, 1. And our A batch, the men's race, on its way. And we look like we've got one of the riders being left behind at the moment. You can see the power outputs as they go along there. Managing 5 watts per kilo, 6 watts per kilo. This is the important thing with Zwift, is you've got to keep that power down. You've got to make sure you're always up there. We got Mr. Miller there coming through, as the riders keep on going. Now they're going to come to the end of that first 200 meters, and when that happens, it's all wild and on their way. Remember, the majority of the loop for London is pretty flat. Although there are slight rises and descents, they're not really anything to talk about. These guys are going to be flying over them in the bunch. There may be small attacks that happen, but I can't imagine anyone's going to let any breakaways get away before Leith Hill. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how they handle. We're going to cross to the ladies start shortly. I know there was a 2-minute time gap, so 2 minutes past 8 we should be seeing the start of the ladies event as well, and that'll be exciting. I see we've got a double over live stream coming shortly, showing some of those riders pedaling like mad. I see Andries listed on the names on the right hand side on Zwift there, and pushing out 3-4 watts per kilo. They're keeping it nice and steady. Personally, for me, I find that absolutely amazing. I managed to hold about 3.5, and after about 5 minutes, that's enough for me. So these riders, although some of them don't consider themselves athletes, I would say these are serious athletes being able to hold these numbers. So we're going to cross over to the ladies start, and have we got it going now? Waiting for that start to kick in. All the ladies on the start line. I see Hayley Preen listed there, so she got in nice and early to warm up. Carla Stumpf as well. Great competitors here. They've been competing in the USSA Varsity Challenge over the last couple of years. Got some great titles there. So ladies on their way now. And straight away you can see the numbers up there, 8 watts per kilo coming out. They've got to be careful because they start that race too quickly. They put too much power down, and they start to drain those systems. That lactate levels start to rise too quickly, and they just never recover. And this is the problem. You've got to be very, very careful about how you apply the power in the early parts of the race without losing any ground. But it's nervous times. This is an important race, and the title of USSA University Sport South Africa Premier League SA presented e-racing title up for grabs, and we're going to see how they perform out there. So we'll keep swapping as it goes. At the moment, watching the ladies, and they're keeping it together. I see Hayley Preen is highlighted there at the moment, holding a steady 4.5 watts per kilo. There's 600 meters in there, and all our favorites looks like they are clocked together. So that's going to be a tight race. I can't imagine they're going to let each other get away. Similar story to the men's race, just not quite as many of them. So here we go. We are crossing over, and I'm looking now at Brent Yelland, Wild Dogs. He is holding a steady 4 watts per kilo, 5 watts per kilo. They are leading into Leith Hill shortly. So there's a couple of bumps here that are going to affect things as they go. They're definitely going to loosen the legs up for these riders, and we're going to have to see how those attacks go from each of the riders as we get through it. Keeping it steady, bunches together. There's been some accelerations, and none of them absolutely violent. You can see the numbers between all the riders holding steady. So anywhere between 4 and 5 watts per kilo, depending on whether they're sitting in the slipstream or they're sitting at the front, or they're looking to move towards the front of the bunch. Nothing dramatic happening at this point. And there we go across the start line for Leith Hill. So we start to get the timing for those riders. Cadence nice and high. Matthew Hollander, 360 watts, 189 heart rate. Now that is ticking along, and Sengrini staying very close up there as well. We're starting to tick up into the 5s regularly from these riders, so 5 watts per kilo as the gradient starts to kick up a little bit. So we're sitting at 4%, 5%, relatively early days on that gradient. We'll see it kick up to 8, 10% at times, and that's where the moments are going to happen for these riders. We'll see who applies which of the power-ups as they go. So swapping across to the ladies racing now. I see we're watching Hayley Preen at the moment, previous winner in 2018 and 2017 for the USSA Championships on the road and mountain bike events. And Carla Schultz, customized cycling racer there. Everyone holding steady. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. If they open up too early, is that going to be a major problem? We're never going to know until we get to the end. 28 kilometers in total. They're starting to hit that climb shortly. The gradient is definitely going to hurt things. Those on the smart trainers, they're all regulated on smart trainers. They're all on Zwift power, so we can check all their stats afterwards. And it's even playing fields for everyone. They're going to have to work very, very hard to keep it together. Carlos Stumpf there leading it out, keeping the cadence nice and high, 100 RPM on the climb. It does level out a couple of times before they hit the really serious gradient, and that's where we're going to see some hard racing coming through from those riders. They're definitely going to look to split it up. I can imagine Tiffany Keep, Hayley Preen, really pushing hard to get that bunch smashed to pieces up this climb and being able to time trial to a solo glory win. We'll have to see how it goes. Back to the men's event now, and we can see that group down to about 7 right now as I can see it, and some aggressive numbers going on. They're holding the high 4 watts per kilo, 5 watts per kilo. So none open up just yet. I didn't see any of the action occurring, but we're clocking up at 7% gradient now. So now we're starting to see some of the serious parts of this climb kicking in. And this is where the riders are going to really have to make a difference. I think we're going to see a group of probably 3 to 4 riders of our favorites clocking over the top there. And those favorites, those riders are really going to be making the strategic decisions as they go over the top of that climb. Depending on who's with them is how they're going to call the rest of the event. But that title up for grabs today, the USSA e-racing title, the first in the USSA series here today, and presented by the Premier League South Africa. So looking at into the, where are we, ladies event. Now, no, the men's side. So we got a nice split going on now, 10% gradient. So although the bunch is keeping it together, you can see the guys are working very hard. Heart rate's high, watts are high. If you know anything about Zwift and power output, being able to hold 350 watts is a pretty special thing. But doing that when you only weigh 65 kilos is absolutely amazing, and that's what's going to make these riders here today. Those lightweight powerhouses are the ones that are going to make the difference. So we can see that same sort of 7 riders there keeping it together, holding that steady 5 watts. You can see that those watts per kilo going up steadily, so they're definitely tightening the screws as they go. It's one of those moments where if you couldn't see the numbers, you wouldn't know it's happening. But inside, those riders are starting to feel that pain. 5 watts per kilo as we go along, and keeping at the 7% gradient at the moment. So heading up Leaf Hill, this is a factor that's going to split this race, and it's already occurring. We're going to cross over now to the ladies event. And I see now we got M. Du Toit. Is that a nice breakaway going on there? I'll wait for the stats to go. Hayley Preen there. So as I see it, Hayley holding some big numbers. I know she's a very good time trialist, although relatively new to the cycling world. I think she had her first USSA event after only a couple of months of riding, and that was absolutely amazing. She did incredibly well, taking a couple of wins in stages on that event, and then coming back and taking the title overall. She's not only a cyclist though, a horse rider, a runner, and a good academic to boot. So all of these riders, remember, they are full-time students at these relevant universities, and this is a sport that they partake in, and they are really good athletes, really dedicated individuals. And we do have some live stream crossovers that we're going to go into shortly. As I get a 10-second countdown, I think we're going to go into the first of our crossovers. So we're going to do Eric Hines. Eric Hines is going to be the first of our riders we're going to be crossing over onto shortly. And when I get the indication, we'll call up his little video as well. But there we go, thumbs up.
Hi guys, it's Eric Hines here from the Varsity College cycling team. At the end of 2017, I got diagnosed with myocarditis. Wasn't able to train or do any excessive exercise for around about a year. After that, I needed to put in a lot of hard work to be able to get to a level where I can compete again, and still not there yet, but getting closer and closer. My support team consists of close friends and family, as well as Sean, our team manager, and Daniel, our PR manager, and obviously all the sponsors that have had a small impact on our careers along the way. My biggest achievement thus far has been winning the Transpavillons and being the youngest ever winner of the Transpavillons. Races happening on a regular basis. I kept myself going by setting training goals and working towards those goals, as it was a perfect opportunity to work on your weaknesses, as there's not a lot of time in a usual racing season where you just need to focus on racing. My message to others would be to keep on working hard, don't give up, trust the process, and set a lot of goals.
So there we go, Eric Hines in the graphic earlier on, and we're seeing him in the race at the moment, highlighted on him holding that 370 watts steadily, 190 beats per minute. I'm pretty certain he is at maximum. He's riding a nice big gear, strong rider, capable of handling that as well, so keeping that 80 RPM steady cadence as he goes up the climb. 7% gradient, and you can start to see, if you're watching on Zwift, the top right graphic will give you the spread of the riders. So you can see the effect of that constant pressure starting to play out on those riders. Eric Hines sitting behind Andries Sengrini. The two of them seem to be settling down nicely. They've let a little bit of a gap go out there, and we're looking at a bit of a gap to Geldenace. We got Brent Yelland, we got D. Curtis, and each of them getting a gap on those riders. It's going to be interesting to see, because it's splitting up quite a lot as they go through this, and still a fair amount of distance to deal with in the London Loop as well. So we're going to have to see how they go, what they do. They can still see each other ahead. So none of those gaps exceptionally big that I would mention. There we go. We get Geldenace coming back to the group with Sengrini and Haynes. So that makes three of them. And the question is now, has Geldenace done a little bit too much too early? Is he going to be able to hold on as Sengrini, the Pro Touch rider, goes to the front? And you can see he's just upped it that little bit more, 5 watts per kilo. Haynes has managed to respond to it. Geldenace managing to keep up with them as well. At the moment, those three looking like a solid little group. And there we go. Looks like that gap has opened now. Sengrini managing to get it working further forward. So our next Varsity College profile rider, Nomfundo Mchali, we've crossed over there, and it's going to be, I just got to check towards my directors. We got a little review going to come in, and okay, so we're going to keep away from that review now. One of the riders from Varsity College, relatively new to the cycling world, and learning this new environment, the Zwift environment and the virtual racing environment, with some really stiff competition around as well. Good rider, great capability to keep the power going out there, and I see she's settled into her environment quite well. So we'll have to see how she goes, keeping a steady 100 watts there, 66 RPM. She's very comfortable with that heavier gear, that rolling gear, and looking quite good out there as she makes her way up Leith Hill. She's on the relatively easier gradient, 5%, 6%. If you're watching the Zwift graphic at the moment, you'll see her out of the saddle. It's not necessarily that she's out the saddle, it's what happens on Zwift when the cadence drops below that 60 RPM mark. It may be looking at 37, 38. I'm not so certain that the trainer is kicking through properly for her at that moment. It's one of those things you've got to be checking all the time. Technology here, the trainers and Zwift and how they link to each other, absolutely amazing. Every name and every person you see on Zwift is someone on a trainer, on a bike of some sort. You swap across to the men's event now and onto the downhill, and Brent Yelland smashing it. He's holding 81 k's an hour. We have got a 9% gradient on that downhill. and being chased hard, 10 seconds behind by Sengrini, Eric Hines, and Mr. Caldenace all together. They're looking like they're going to bring that back together. I can't see Brent Yelland keeping them off. He's chasing Mr. Scher, Vaderman, and Curtis as they head on down that descent. I think it's really going to come to the crossover into the main, into the London Loop again. So we're heading down the other side of Leith Hill now. It has split that race wide apart, and we can see riders split all over the race. As this group now, we got the leading group that I understand right now. So Mr. Scher, Curtis, and Vaderman coming together and holding that 5-4 watts per kilo as they head towards the flatter section, and shortly you'll see them heading back across into the greater London Loop reverse environment, so back into the city. Crossing over now, we're with Mr. Stett, 8102, holding at 300 watts on the descent. They want to keep the speed as high as possible, 60 k's an hour. If you manage to sit the slipstream of another rider at that moment in time, you can actually back off huge amounts and save a lot for later on, allowing a huge amount of recovery. I'm seeing some 8-9 watt per kilo sprints coming in there as well. We're going to have to see how the riders handle this, because the effort has now been done. And we're expecting a total time of around about 35 minutes. We're about 17 minutes into the event now, so around about halfway. Depending on how fast they keep going and whether this stays as a flat out time trial, 4-5 watts per kilo the whole way through, is going to be our dictate for the day. Okay, 1 minute to go. I'm getting from our directors as we are going to be crossing over to a bit of a breakdown on some of our riders, see how they're doing across the different groups. Eric Haynes at the moment, Sengrini keeping it together. I think they're going to make a good little team, those two, and they're going to be able to bringing Brent Yelland back into the mix now. Caldenace just not managing to close that gap. That 4 seconds is going to definitely hurt him. He's not going to be happy. It's like there's an old saying in cycling, hold the wheel. And you hold the wheel because the slipstream effect is so vitally important to your ability to keep that speed up there. And the same thing in the virtual racing world. The slipstream has an effect, and you look at anything up to around about 30% saving in energy if you get your positioning right. So these three riders, Brent Yelland, Sengrini, Mr. Caldenace, doing a good job keeping it together. And I think if they're very smart, they pace it together, they don't start any silly conversations between them or playing any silly games, they're probably going to be able to reel everyone in, and it's going to come down to a very small elite group who are going to be able to sprint out for that title. It'll be good when we cross over shortly to the ladies event to see how they're going. They're going to be going over the top of that climb shortly as well. I'm expecting to see Hayley Preen up there. A very, very strong rider, very good individual rider with her running background. She's got no problem taking on events like individual time trials. And the irony of events like e-racing is that the individual performance becomes so much more important, because you don't necessarily feel the energy of those people around you because you are in a virtual world. So I'm looking at 8:19 at the moment, and at 8:22 we're going to bring another live stream across from Rashan, who's going to be our Zwift expert, giving us a rundown on how everything works between the smart trainers, the virtual world. It's an absolutely amazing environment, and it's done a huge amount for training and cycling and competitive nature and the cycling clubs. As I said earlier, Premier League SA being pretty much the spearhead of this virtual racing world in South Africa. So I'm getting a 10-second countdown. I assume that's for the crossover into the Zwift introduction we're going to get from Rashan. And I've got the thumbs up, so let's cross over to Rashan now.
Hey, I'm Rasan, and today I'm gonna show you how to adjust the difficulty on your smart trainer. This adjustment won't impact how far or fast you ride, but it will change how climbs feel. So after launching Zwift, go to the menu, click on the settings button, and find the trainer difficulty slider. Now the default position is midway between off and max, or 50% of the grade resistance you'll find while riding the same grade of the hill in the real world. Leave the settings unchanged and climbs often feel challenging. Descents also provide resistance, which means you'll almost always have the opportunity to keep pedaling. If you're looking for more of a challenge, you move that slider all the way over to the right and the climbs will become way more difficult. But remember, downhills get steeper too, so you'll spin out even earlier. Moving the slider to the left makes climbs easier, but descents will offer more resistance. All right, click OK and you're good to go. You're ready to have some fun. I'll see you in Wytopia.
Okay, we're back live and we're watching the guys as they head on through. So it's back through that subway station. The amazing thing they can do with Zwift is bringing you into environments in the real world just would not happen. Look at that gradient, 15%. And that's one of those moments I know that I've got to get out the saddle. I just have to power it to keep the pace as high as I can. Mr. Sher, Curtis heading through with Vaderman, the three of them holding steady. They are holding first, second and third position there in the Premier League event here for the USSA e-bike racing championships here on Zwift. We're on the Greater London route reverse and holding it nicely. So we got three riders and they're being chased by another three riders. Has Mr. Geldenhuys managed to close that gap? No, he hasn't. He has been dropped back. So we're looking on that next group as it goes. So we got Mr. Yelland, Sengrini together with Eric Haynes and the three of them chasing the first three. So three groups of three, and I think this is going to come together and ultimately we're going to end up with a 4, 5, maybe 6 rider sprint to the line. We're going to have to see how it goes. Holding steady, 4.5 to 5 watts per kilo as they go, as we move back through the field and we look at some of the other riders. Mr. Miller coming through 10th position currently, 13 kilometers covered. We're going to go into the power-ups now. We might as well share some of that information for you, show you what's happening. For those of you that haven't ridden on Zwift before, go out to one of the gyms that has smart training bikes, or borrow a trainer from a friend. Take your bike around, hop on their trainer, give it a try. Zwift, a really amazing environment, and there's some clever little things that you can apply, which are the power-ups. And those power-ups give us a lot of different functions. One is you can have a boost which reduces your body weight, helps you for any of the steeper ascent areas, and the guys would have made a lot of use of those up on the on Leaf Hill. And once you've got out of this subway station and you're back into the city, that Leaf power up, the one that reduces your body weight, is not going to be much use at all. But there are slipstreaming factors, there's tow factors, and those are going to make big differences to the rider's abilities, and they can supplement their own natural abilities by choosing a power up at that moment. The issue is you do have to control your companion app that you work with, the Zwift app, and you have to select that thing, and it runs for about 10 seconds. It'll give you that boost for that period, and if you apply it at exactly the right time, you can give yourself a massive advantage over the other rider. So interesting to watch as we got 10th place here, Mr. Miller riding through, heading over that bridge over the River Thames and into the city, the old city of London. Remember the London Loop reverse, and 28 kilometers in total. So we're now clocking up at 16 kilometers for these riders as we head to first, second and third. The group of three in the lead, Mr. Curtis, Vaderman and Scher. And again, look at the watts per kilo that they're holding, 5, 4 and 3. As we cross to Carla Stumpf, cruising nicely, 5th position in the ladies event on the descent currently. And we're looking at a 25 second, 47 second, 1 minute 39 between behind Hayley Preen. So big gaps to make up for her. We're going to have to see how she handles. Almost 12 kilometers done in total for Carla Stumpf. So obviously not enjoying that climb as much as the other riders. Hayley Preen doing a very, very good job there. And see if we can cross over and click to her shortly. be interesting to see how she goes, holding 4 watts per kilo. Hislop as well, 4.2 watts per kilo. These are big numbers for any rider to hold. And these ladies absolutely placing everything into this event. As we said, 28 kilometers in total here today. It's not very long on a course where you can hold average speeds of on 40 to 45k an hour. We're expecting a finish time anything over 35 minutes for the men and close to the 38-40 minute time for the women. We'll see how close I am to predicting that one as we go. Looking at the time now, 8:26. We got the profile of each of the riders that we're going to cross over to as time develops. So we'll have a look at each of them as it goes. Going back to the racing, I was looking at some of the men's racing. We're back into the ladies event, 3rd position, currently making her way through that station. M. Du Toit coming through, 3.5 watts per kilo. Very impressive numbers to hold there. She'll be kicking up to that 4 watts per kilo, and as she hits that steep gradient up the escalator, that hits 15% gradient. It is a big one. So there we go. We got our leaders, Hayley Preen in the lead currently, and she's being watched very closely by Hislop. Hislop did have the gap there, but Hayley's closed that very, very quickly. So Hayley, I think, is absolutely dominant today. She is hungry for another title. She's taking the win in the past, representing Stellenbosch, an amazing rider with quite a diverse background, horse riding, running, her academics, and a very busy life overall. But it seems that running time trial mentality is in there. When she gets going, she just does not let go. So Hayley Preen currently in the lead, 15 kilometers almost done for her. And the two of them working quite nicely at the moment. I think Hislop needs to be careful. She's taken the King of the Mountains title, which is a cool one to be able to take. So she gets that polka dot jersey for the first one over the climb. I didn't get to see her going over the top of that climb, but a very impressive result, and obviously a very capable rider pulling off the King of the Mountains title as she went over the top. But those two sitting with almost a minute's advantage there. We got Tiffany Keep down in 4th position, 1 minute and 21 down. It looks like she's going to catch Du Toit. Knowing Tiffany, seeing her in the mountain bike environment, the XCO, XCM, she knows what racing's all about, and I'm pretty certain she's measured her effort out. She's going to keep the power down and keep it pretty steady, holding that 3.1, 3.2 watts per kilo as she goes. I don't think she's going to get anywhere near to Hayley Preen and Hislop. The two of them in the lead currently. That's where everything's going to happen from as I can measure it now. 15 kilometers done for those two, and big efforts from both of them to get to that point. So it's what we predicted, that Leith Hill really was the differentiator for them, putting the power down, causing some major pain and major suffering for the riders behind. Those that could and were clever enough would have backed off early enough to settle into their own pace, deal with the rest of the course after the climb, and be able to make up time. I know for myself as an individual, being a little bit heavier, 85 kilos, I need to be careful about those climbs, but I can definitely have the advantage when we hit the flat roads. And that's what some of these riders are going to be playing out as we swap across to the men's event now. And we're looking at Miller and Sana coming through now. We're going to do a profile on Carlton. So let me catch up onto where I'm going now. Carlton Miller from UCT. So as I'm looking at them now, we got Carlton Miller. Let me get his detail. Gruppetto Bro. That's what he rides for. And he's the leader of the 2019 USSA Gruppetto. So doing a lot of the rides out there for the guys. Very strong rider. We can see him here currently in 11th position. And I see they're swapping as he changes with the pace line with Mr. Sana there. Holding a steady 3.5 watts per kilo. So this is where the guys have to really try and figure out how they catch their breath again, because they're up against some really professional riders, despite these guys being full-time students and looking towards what their academic and business and professional careers are going to be. They still are serious athletes. And I see we were at Andre Sengrini group. We're now back at the top 3. And I've just got a break up in some of the coverage there. So Mr. Scher, Mr. Vaderman, and Mr. Curtis keeping it together nice and close. Some big numbers coming up there. So Vaderman kicking up to 6 watts per kilo, Scher responding with 6 watts per kilo there. But I think they're keeping it close. Those three are going to be watching each other very, very closely the whole way through. Mr. Scher taking the polka dot jersey. So he would have been the first over the top of the climb. And 26 seconds back to the second group. So Sengrini from Pro Touch, Mr. Hines and Mr. Yellen. Have we got 3 together? I've only got 2 now in that second group. We'll cross over to them shortly. 3 of them together. They are being chased down, but I don't think anyone's going to catch them. You're going to have to see with the remaining kilometers. We less than 8 kilometers to go to the finish line for the men's event, our A category event here today at the USSA event for the University Sports South Africa. A bit of breakup in our coverage from Zwift at the moment, but as it stands, currently 3 riders in the break up front, working nicely together. I'm not seeing any major attacks or movements. They just seem to be working to keep it going and being chased down by Mr. Yelland, Sengrini from Pro Touch, and Hines. Also some big watts there. It seems to be holding very steady around that 32 watts area. So going across now, we're going to do a bit of a profile on Andries Sengrini. And Andries, an amazing rider who's had a huge background in cycling, road cycling in particular, track being one of the areas that he's engaged in. He's had a huge experience range, riding for Pro Touch Sports, one of South Africa's, well, premier cycling teams, Africa's premier professional cycling team, and had a huge opportunity to develop up as a potential professional once he's finished his academic career at university. So Andries Sengrini representing Tux University here today, and he is also a UCI Continental Pro Team rider. So this is one with class, this is one who knows what's going on, and I can bet you in the back of his mind, he's holding that 5 watts per kilo, but I am pretty certain he's got a capability to take it up a notch, and he's going to be pretty hungry to take that title. We haven't had his name on the past results over time, his first year, as I understand it, of university sport, and we're going to be watching him closely as he goes. I can imagine that he's going to make a big move shortly, and that move is going to be to close down that 30-second time gap. Does he leave it too late? We'll have to see as it develops. So Andries Sengrini, huge experience-based team, Pro Touch Sport rider. They're a continental team. They're Africa's premier team. They race all over Africa and into Europe at times. They're clocking up huge points for South Africa as well. And he's one of those representatives there. So this man can handle pain. 28 kilometers of virtual racing is hardly enough time to keep himself going. So we're going to cross over and have a little look at Jonae van Heerden. And Jonae, another one of those amazing riders. She's had a great time in her racing career. I see she's sitting currently at 8th position in the ladies event. She races representing Head Bikes SA. A great little company, a lot of support for the riders out there. She's out on her own, holding that steady 3.2, 3.5 watts per kilo, and in total at 14, almost 15 kilometers completed. Jonae van Heerden, youngster, a couple of years of experience so far and doing very nicely in this event, holding 8th position against some very tough, very experienced competition. That's not a bad thing to say at all. For the first of our events in the e-racing environment, great to see Jonae here in this race, representing Northwest University, the Paka guys from Potchefstroom. Jonae, we look forward to seeing many great things coming from her in the future. We're now watching back at the front with the ladies event, Hayley Preen now. Hayley, you can see those numbers. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. She's holding 4 watts per kilo up all the time, and I think Hislop is she's managing to keep it going there, but it's definitely going to make a big difference as we get closer, depending on the strength work and the ability and what they've held off as they go. So Hanro Geldenays, our next rider, we're going to profile, and Hanro from Northwest University as well. So one of the compatriots of Jonae van Heerden. Another one of those great riders, lots of experience, particularly in the mountain biking environment. We're waiting for a positional update. I think we're looking at 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th position currently in the standings. And on his own in a big gap, I mean, I'm pretty certain he's desperate to close that 18-second down onto courts, holding 6.6 watts per kilo there. So upwards of 5 watts per kilo. Now you as an individual go into one of those trainers and try to hold 5 watts per kilo. See how long you do it. It feels almost superhuman, and these riders are going from 5 watts up to 6 watts, back down to 5 watts. Absolutely amazing. So Mr. Carlton Hanro looking very good, representing Potchefstroom University, and a great rider with lots of experience in that mountain biking world, keeping things nice and clean. We cross over, I'm still with Carlton there, still holding that 6 watts per kilo and 23.5 kilometers done. So less than 5 kilometers to go here. They are onto the flatter roads now, and you'll see the gradient. Apart from when they drop under a bridge or go over a bridge, it's not going to change very much, and it's very short when they do that. So unless the riders are really clever about how they apply any power-ups they may have, or doing any sprints at the right time to get a gap, it's not going to see much difference. It looks like things are settling down as we cross to the front group. Our top 3 riders holding that gap very nicely, and I think they really have worked well together, holding 6 watts per kilo. These are massive numbers, and there we go. We can see 12 watts per kilo coming out there from Mr. Scher. He's made a big effort there to open that gap and holding it at 10 watts per kilo. Curtis responding to bring it back. He's got to close that gap quickly. If they let that gap open, you lose that slipstream effect, and that's it. Slight downhill, back onto the flats as they go. It kicks up and they hold it steady again. So Mr. Curtis, was that was the finish line, was that? We can't be at that. And it was the finish line. I was so taken by surprise how quickly they got into that. So watching back to Tunsil at the moment, just one of the riders on the loop. There we go, Dutoy, one of the ladies in our race, 3rd position currently, holding that nice here, good gap back to Tiffany Keep. Tiffany 42 seconds behind Dutoy, and ahead we got Hayley Preen and Heslop. They're keeping it together. Those two are going to be sprinting it out for the finish, and they're coming into that currently. So it's going to, I expect they got a couple of kilometers to go. So as the overall goes, we should be seeing them coming in at 22 kilometers done. So 6 kilometers to go. I was taken a bit by surprise at the men's event coming across so quickly there. The 3 of the riders coming across the finish line together and taking it on that sprint. So not that any of those riders were going for the lone break. They were waiting it out for that sprint. So there we go. We got Sengrini across the line. We got Eric Haynes and Mr. Curtis, Brent Jelland coming across shortly. And we're done. So there we go. Wow. That was amazing with the men's event. So I'll get those final results through to us. Looks like Mr. Scher taking the king of the mountains. Sengrini not quite able to close that gap down. You know, it's going to be difficult once the guys hit lethal and their power goes down. The ability to recover is just so difficult to get right. And if you don't recover, you're not going to be able to put those power-ups there in the right place. You're not going to be able to make those moves to separate from the other riders. And some serious competition going on there. So very fast time, sub 40 minutes for those 25 kilometer loop there. And some great racing overall. So we'll get some results for you as we go. We're going to go into some of the profiles of the riders as we go. We're calling up Brent Jelland now, and we'll see if we can get some of the coverage of him doing his ride. That would be really good. I'm sure he's really breathing through his ears right now. Brent Jelland, here we go.
Hi, my name is Brent Jelland.
We'll cross over.
I'm a student at USSA. I'm 2nd year mechanical engineering. Some of my results are top 10 at the Junior Zwift Champs last year. I've podiumed at many local mountain bike races, and podiumed at KZN Road and Time Trial Champs as a junior.
Okay, so there we go, race done for the day, and we're going to go into a couple of our profiles as we can. Hayley Preen, we're looking to see Hayley coming in towards the end of her event, and we'll look towards her profile as well. Carlton Miller, Hanro Geldenay, Shonay van Heeren, we've covered them as we've gone. Brent Yellen, we just had a watch over as well. Lamar Meyer from Stellenbosch University and Carla Stumpf, good to get their profiles. There's some great riders in this list, and an amazing group of riders. You can see how serious the racing was out there. All those numbers, the ladies holding upwards of 3.5, close on 4 watts per kilo. In fact, Hayley holding that 4 upwards watts per kilo number the whole way through. And Cameron, next one we're calling up. Very good. So we're looking now to, let me see where I've got Cameron. Which of the universities is Cameron riding for? Okay. Tshwane University of Technology rider. So I'm going to grab my information on each of these guys, and phenomenal performance from these riders. Quite a big team put forward by Tux as well, and Andries Sengrini, one of the riders representing there, but a great team, and I'm sure they put in some big effort from them. They're also representing some great sponsors as well, so Greer High Performance Coaching, Team Pro Touch, Drivetrain Academy, Jowett Cycles. Great to see those sponsors coming through, and great to see such a large representation from Tux University, the University of Pretoria. A great institution, not only for academia, but also for sporting performance, and the Tuckies athletes across almost every sporting field, renowned for their dedication and focus. They got that high performance center at Tuckies HPC, where they can get advice and support from the top sports scientists and medical doctors. They got an amazing physical training center as well. So phenomenal area and phenomenal group of riders up in Pretoria, University of Pretoria, pretty close to where we're actually broadcasting from here at the Premier League SA studios. So great performances by those riders so far. Andries Sengrini, Devin Baird, Tanya Kotze in the women's race, Michael Sinclair, Mika Heft, Kyra Hempel, Joshua Chitsika. So some great riders overall. Good racing from the men's event today. Great to see that massive attacks going on as well. And we look forward to some of the other crossovers and coverage. We do have a message that we're going to be doing from our man on the ground who really pulled this all together is Travis Heesum, and we'll have a chat to him at some point. We'll call him up, and we're going to be doing some follow over. In fact, we're going to call him up right now. So handing over to Travis Heesum.
Good morning, guys. My name is Travis Heesum, and I'm here to officially welcome you to the first ever USSA Virtual Cycling Tour. This is not ever going to replace the physical tour that you guys have enjoyed over the last couple of years. We do understand that that is very, very important, and we'd love to get you guys back on the ground competing against one another. We also hope that we, as an interim committee of USSA Cycling, will be building it back up to its former glory and being able to send you guys to opportunities overseas and World Student Games and the likes. We're also hoping to provide more opportunities such as this one for you guys to take part in over the course of the year. There are a number of people that I need to thank for making this event possible. That would be the interim committee of the USSA Cycling. You guys have put in an amazing amount of effort and worked so well as a team to pull this event off, and we really, really have to thank you for that. We need to thank the member institutes for jumping on board and having faith in this interim committee that is moving forward and providing you guys with more opportunity. We also have to thank Chantel from Premier League South Africa. She has put in a huge amount of work in the background to make sure that this looks and feels as good as it is. Then the Department of Arts, Sports and Culture, thank you guys for putting in all of the funds necessary to make this event happen. Without you guys, it certainly wouldn't be what it is. From the student side, we really appreciate you guys jumping on board, using this opportunity, and we really hope that you have the most amount of fun.
So there we go. We're going to cross over and have a chat to some of our riders and representatives. You can see some of the riders cooling down. We'll bring them in another picture as we go. We are going to have a chat to Jamie and Dylan shortly, and we're going to have a little hear about how things have gone, how their training's been, what their feeling is about being in this USSA environment, this University Sports South Africa environment, and how it's helped them develop up as cyclists, as athletes, and as individuals. We've prepped most of these riders with some questions, so they are pretty ready to give us that breakdown. Do I have Jamie and Dylan there at the moment, or who do I have on? Jamie Vederman? JP Vederman. JP, are you there? Do we have JP? JP, can you hear me? So I'm looking across at JP's coverage. I don't think he can hear me. He might not have his speaker on his phone. JP, are you there? I can hear something in my earpiece as I'm talking. I can hear someone talking in the background, but I can't hear if it's him. JP? There we go. They said they can hear me now. Okay, JP, welcome to it. How are you feeling? It's a big effort, a huge effort on Zwift, a little bit different to racing in the real world, although it covers all the factors and the stats and the power outputs and everything. In such a short event, and in it, being in the virtual world, it makes a big difference. How do you find racing, this e-racing world? So JP, give for our listeners and those people watching, give us a quick rundown, who you are, where you're from, how long you've been riding. Let's start with those three. So who are you? Nice work. And the race today, give us a rundown of how it went for you from the gun, because literally it felt like 10 minutes passed for me watching all that racing and how aggressive it was. How was the racing for you? And as your feelings went, you happy with your results, you're happy with your positioning, and I mean, I'm sure you're pretty proud of what you've pulled off for the Maltese folk. So there we go. Well, JP, congratulations, well done. A fantastic event today and fantastic racing. So I'm going to cut it across now. I've been told by the director we're just going to bring a wrap up together. So yeah, I'm going to say a big thank you to everyone. JP, congratulations to all our riders out there and all the universities that participated today. Tshwane University of Technology, Northwest University, University of Pretoria, Varsity College, Stellenbosch University, University of Cape Town, and University of KZN. Congratulations to every single one of them. To Mrs. Mhlango, the president of the USSA organization, University Sports South Africa, bringing this together. The Department of Arts, Sports and Culture, making this possible for those athletes, and to the athletes in particular, well done to every single one of you. I want to say a huge thank you to the Premier League SA, making this event happen and making it possible, pulling this broadcast together and bringing all the athletes together as well, the Zoom of the athletes, seeing them in person, putting that big effort in for this event today. And really great to have the first of our PLSA Varsity Challenge USSA live, virtual live streams happening. Absolutely amazing, and looking forward to amazing series coming up as we go. Great to see some big names coming through in the results. Haley Preen looking phenomenal again. JP Geldenhuys, it's just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, looking forward to seeing the next in the event and the round as we go. We'll have more communication going as it happens, and I'd like to say thank you to every single one of you, to Premier League South Africa, to University Sports South Africa, Department of Arts, Sports and Culture, and to each of the university institutions and their riders. Congratulations and well done. And guys, we'll see you next time. Have a great one.